I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. What if everything you knew about competing in business was dead wrong? Most companies believe that success comes from promoting what they do, i.e. their products, services, and features, but what if that mindset is exactly what's holding them back? Well, my guest today is Ken Schmidt. He's the former communications leader at Harley-Davidson and author of Make Some Noise, The Unconventional Road to Dominance. Ken was part of the rebel team that helped rescue Harley from the brink of bankruptcy, not by out-engineering the competition, but by out-humanizing them. He'll show us how a focus on human connection and delight created one of the most iconic and loyal brands in the world. You'll hear the real story behind Harley's comeback and walk away with the tools you can use to radically reframe how you can become more competitive in your marketplace. And there's 3 practical takeaways that we'll talk about. Number 1, ask these 3 game-changing questions. What are people saying about us? What do we want them to say? And what are we going to do to get them to say it? Number 2, do the 5-word test. Choose 5 words or phrases to describe your business, but here's the twist. None can be used by your competitors. And spoiler alert, quality and customer service are off the list. And then lastly, find your noise. In a world where everyone sounds the same, make sure your business has a voice that people remember. Ken Schmidt is one of the business world's most demanded and executive advisors and speakers, and he has been a host and is a host of the Tailgating with Geniuses podcast and co-founder of Torque Sessions Leadership Training. Ken's success, unconventional business approach, and playful outspokenness led him to consulting assignments with household name brands and transformed him into a highly requested speaker with more than 1,200 keynotes presented globally to date. Ken Schmidt on the Leadovation podcast. Ken, great to have you on the show. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Would you just tell our listeners what's your story? You know, I know we've got the introduction. I know I've already read through all your background, but what's your story? What brings you to this podcast today, and what got you here?
It was a long, twisty, curvy road that got me here on our bi-coastal
Yes.
podcast today. You being West Coast, me being on East Coast today. I've had what to me would be considered a dream career because I got to live out my greatest fantasy, which is working in the motorcycle industry at Harley-Davidson for years. I got to be part of a really small but intensely passionate group of people that were brought into the company when it was at its lowest point. It was about to go bankrupt. And sort of the charge of the business couldn't be more obvious. Let's see if we can turn this thing around. And miraculously, with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, it worked. And it worked not just well, but phenomenally well. And what it has done for me, beyond that, which, I could die happy just knowing that I was part of that. But the fact that what we did and how we did it was so completely unconventional in the way people view business and what business and leadership is and represents, because it was so profoundly different. It kind of spun into this whole second career for me as a consultant and speaker and quasi-expert on things that most people never even think about. Human behavior.
What was your role at Harley?
Yeah,
Sorry, what was your role at Harley-Davidson?
I was in charge of communication and investor relations. So I had to go out and find a investment following for our bankrupt business, which was challenging in its own right, but then also kind of changed the way we positioned our business in the marketplace to build our reputation, or rebuild, I guess I should say, and create demand.
And that's what your book's about,
Yeah,
or some of the concepts that came out of that.
Yeah, the book is really kind of a roadmap. Here's how you should be thinking about your approach to business, how you should position your business, how you should position yourself to be more competitive. Because most people, and most people in business are really good at what they do. Businesses are good at what they do, good at what they make, good at the services that they provide. But in the main, most businesses flat out don't know how to compete. Don't look at the world that way. They look at going to market, and they look at marketing and promoting and bringing their product or service to market. And I'm sorry, that's not competing. That's a path to disaster. Unless you've got a cure for cancer that everybody needs, there's nothing you can sell me that I can't get from somebody else. Period.
So it sounds like you're saying that we have to find something that makes us unique, even in a market that is saturated.
Actually, we don't necessarily need to find something that makes us unique. What I tell people always is, if all you're known for is what you do, you're at a very, very deep competitive disadvantage in the marketplace that you serve. What makes a business dominant, what makes a business attractive, is when it's known for who it is rather than what it is. It's the human qualities, it's the human face. It's human attributes that we naturally, as human beings, attach or associate with a business that makes it memorable to us, that makes it attractive to us, that makes us want to go back to it or recommend it, which is what I always tell people. Like, you're known for what you do. You make good stuff. Big deal. So does everybody else. What else have you got? And they don't think about this, the human equation here. The fact that we're all human beings, that because we're human beings, we humanize everything. If I can't put a human face on something, it's a commodity. If I can't attach human attributes to a business, it's a commodity. I will not remember you for what you do, because what you do is obvious. What you do does not make you special, never has and never will.
So then how did you make Harley-Davidson special? How did you go from we make motorcycles to something that we have an emotional connection to?
The beauty of that question is that I have to answer it truthfully. I say that we had to fail first. And we failed so spectacularly that here was a company that was a household name, going all the way back to 1903, that was the de facto leader in the motorcycle world. You go anywhere in the world and say Harley, everybody say motorcycle, or say motorcycle. A lot of people would say Harley, and blew it. The company just blew it because all it was known for was building motorcycles. And that worked for a long time because there wasn't a lot of competition in the market. But Dean, when companies from Japan, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, companies everybody's heard of, really deep-pocketed companies, started building stuff that looked the same as Harleys, performed the same way as Harleys, or in some cases even better, Harley's market share dropped like a rock. Despite the name, despite the emotional attachment, despite all those people out there that had the name tattooed onto their bodies, the business just imploded on itself, because all we did as a business was promote product. Look, this is what we do. And look at how well we do it. And look what it's going to do for you. And if you're the only one that does that, hey, that'll work. But when you've got competitors who do the exact same stuff and equally well, when all you're doing is promoting what you do, what you're essentially doing is encouraging people to compare you to others. And nobody should want to ever be compared to competitors, because when you encourage people to compare, they're immediately going to be drawn to whoever's got the lowest priced option. If all things are equal, we always go for low price. And that's what we were inadvertently doing. So essentially, we learned out of desperation that we were in the wrong business, that we were in the business of trying to make and sell stuff. And once the business failed, that's when we were able to try doing some new things, because, quite frankly, we didn't have a choice.
What was the new business then you found yourself in if you were no longer in the business of making stuff, aka motorcycles?
Right. Harley was, and ever shall be a motorcycle business, and that couldn't be more obvious. But the change of focus that was required for us was to say, look, we need a completely new mindset within the business here and within the company's dealerships around the world, a mindset that says that we're here to be a source of delight for people. If we can engage, which was a word that nobody used back then, but if we can engage people, make people feel welcome and wanted and appreciated, part of something, if we could be a source of delight for people, they will come back to us because they will remember us. They will begin to attach human qualities to this business. They'll feel like they know people there. I'm friends with these people. I'm part of this community, which again were words that people weren't using back then. No one was talking about engagement in community or even branding back then. We just determined that in order to have any resonance in the marketplace, we need to become better known for who we are as people and attach these human qualities to business, which means we need to get out in front of the people that we serve or hope to serve. Let them see us, know us for who we are, and engage with them, speak with them in the language that they speak.
Go where they are. Is that funneled through that one word of delight? I mean, in a sense, are you selling, promoting, being out in front, telling stories about delightful experiences relative to the experience of being on a Harley, and less about the features, more about the benefits? Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's kind of all that, because I remember this distinctly, Dean, in a meeting in Milwaukee, saying, like, what the world knows what we do. Everybody does. If certainly anybody that would ever consider buying motion knows that our Harley makes big motorcycles. I said, what do we do here, though? And why are we here? And people, we're here to serve. And I said, well, yeah. And we're here to provide great bikes and great experiences. Yeah, I said, but everybody knows that. What's the umbrella? We have to have some kind of umbrella over this. The God, if you will, that we honor and live up to, and that's delight. Because, and this is something a lot of people don't think about, but the definition of loyalty, or my definition of loyalty, certainly is this: that human beings will seek out and return to anything in their life that delights them until it fails to delight them. Listen, if we can focus not on glorifying our products, glorifying what we do, and selling stuff, and instead focus on delighting people and make the person or the people that we are talking to, attempting to serve, marketing to, promoting to, make it feel like they're what's being glorified. Working to glorify people, not our products. If we lead with that, people don't turn and walk away. People don't immediately run and compare us to somebody else. They now feel like somebody is paying attention to me. I like that. Somebody is speaking to me in language that I can understand. They're not jamming product specs down my throat. Especially product specs that I don't understand. And I'm sorry, but unless you have a PhD in mechanical engineering, You don't understand 99% of a motorcycle's engineering, yet that's how we sold product. That's how everybody does. That's
Yeah.
like you buy a laptop computer. What do you see on the sell sheet at the electronics store or at the Best Buy or whatever?
It's all
Is
specs. Yeah,
bullet points of specs that no human being
exactly.
in language you've never used before.
But it wasn't, doesn't that work though in an industry where you are the innovator or you have created a new market? It's the first time we've had the iPhone. It's the first time an app comes out and there is no competition. I
Mhm.
suppose in those cases, you can sell, if you will, on what we do, meaning or
Right.
what we
That's
sell.
almost the cure for cancer thing. When you have something that
Right.
nobody else
But if
has,
there's but if you've
go
got
for it.
competition, if you've got saturated market,
Yeah.
you're an accountant out there and there's 1,000 other accountants. You're an executive coach out there, there's another 1,000 executive coaches, or name whatever industry you're in. You're in healthcare, right? Then of course what you're saying, if I can capture what your meaning
Sure.
is that we need to be spending more time on selling the our version of delight, the benefits of interacting with us and being in community with us, not necessarily just on what we do. Am I?
And what's interesting, Dean, is when you use delight is such a soft
Yeah,
word, uh, and I say that to people in bridge builders, companies building raw materials or software, back end software, stuff nobody would ever see or think about. This is the
yeah,
software that you use to run a dental industry. But we need to be a source of delight for people. And they hear that and they immediately disconnect. We're not in that business. We're not in a consumer business, or our product in itself isn't delightful, or people don't expect that from us. Or they think, in order to delight somebody, that requires enormous, overt, joyous gestures. I said, no, that's all that stuff can be delightful, but all we're talking about is giving somebody just the tiniest little flash of delight that we get when we see and sense and feel something that is being done differently, that is being done in a way that benefits me or puts me first. That tiny bit of delight we recognize immediately. That's different. They're not shoving product specs down my throat. The person that's answering the phone doesn't sound like, she'd rather be dead than have to take another call like you get at so many places. It's like, how did we lose that as a society, as a culture? And how do we think that that's okay? Please hold.
yeah, exactly.
I
Your
mean,
call is
how
very important to us. This
what
call is
I've
being recorded for customer service quality. But
exactly. Pay
yeah, it's
attention. Our
awful.
prompts may have changed. No, your prompts haven't changed in 10 years. But the point there is that's your first taste a lot of times.
It's the
To
host at the restaurant you're going into is often your call center. Correct.
and see, here's the thing: is that that first taste is the face now that's attached to your business.
Yes.
Good or bad, and when it's bad or completely indifferent.
It's like to say that, I think there's a phrase called anchor bias, like the first
Yep.
experience you have with a company or the first idea that comes out of an ideation session is the one that has greater weight because everything else is compared against it. To your point, if our
Yep.
first interaction with a company is, some sort of robotic person on the other end, or not even a person,
Or just
it
somebody
sets
who's
into motion a
yep.
hard to reverse taste in one's mouth. Like now you really have to work hard to counteract that first impression.
And it's
So
probably not going to work. Yep.
it's probably not going to work. So what did you guys do? What did you do at Harley what was the strategy to go from, hey, we're failing, we're not doing so well, we're selling bikes, we're not selling experience, we're not selling delight. What did the customer, what did I or others, if we were around back then, see differently, experience differently at Harley that they didn't experience before?
Great question, Dayton. See, the old model for us at that point, uh, and remarkably is still the model that just about every competitor in the bike industry except Harley uses to this day. The old model was we build it, we ship it to a dealer, the dealer's the first customer, our work is done, now go sell it. That clearly wasn't working for us anymore. So we had kind of backed into, by accident, this notion of, or this discovery that when we get in front of people, when we're actually talking to members of our riding community, members of the family, people that we want to attract in the business, a lot of really, really positive things happen. And as simple as that sounds, I'll try to give you a quick Reader's Digest on how that played out. We were so desperate to generate revenue. We had to sell bikes that we stopped marketing almost entirely. We didn't have any money to market, to promote, to advertise, and instead took whatever budget we did have for that and leased a couple of trucks and loaded the trucks up with bikes and took them out anywhere where motorcycle people were likely to be gathered. So picture blue collar, like drag strips or NASCAR events back before NASCAR became the
thing.
Super giant thing that it did, and would allow anybody with a bike license or something that was a reasonable facsimile thereof to get on a bike and take it for a 15-mile ride. And that was never done in the industry. And the reasons were really obvious, because everyone was afraid of liability. A really bad thing could happen out there and we could get sued. Well, we were broke. It was like, sue us. We got nothing. I'm being flipped there, but that was kind of thought. Like, this is a risk worth taking. And people would show up and ride the bike. And what we began noticing was as soon as somebody would get off the bike, they would tend to be either kind of excited, but would immediately want to say something about it to the employee or dealer volunteer that was standing there. And that was great, because here's this obvious opportunity to get immediate feedback on product, or experience, quote unquote. But what would start happening was, if we were standing there having a leisurely conversation with somebody as they were putting the kickstand down and climbing off the bike, the next person, the other people standing in line would get antsy, like, come on, like, let's keep the lines moving. And we're having these conversations. So we had this kind of conundrum where we've got somebody standing right in front of us who wants to give us some instant feedback, but we don't have a mechanism to gather that, to have that immediacy, but to keep everybody happy. So we essentially just came up with one question. Let's ask everybody one question that they can answer quickly. So they'll give the feedback and get on the way. And the question was, and it's so simple, it's kind of mind-boggling, that what do we have to change on this motorcycle to convince you to buy it? Like, I mean, we were in selling mode. That's not a question you would ask now. And what we found, the great discovery, Dean, was 100% of people, when you're standing right in front of them, when they're asked a question, they're going to answer the question. And everybody answered the question. People thought, we get like a 2% return on our surveys. Oh, good for you. What about the other 98%? If they stood right in front of you and you asked them the question, they'd give you the answer. Therefore, you're waiting for people to come to you instead of getting in front of them and asking. And they were giving the information they were giving us was priceless. I can't reach the handlebars. So the handlebars are too low. They're not wide enough. The foot controls need to be higher. The foot controls need to be lower. So nobody was, and all this is being written down and kind of funneled together and then being fed to engineering, manufacturing, design. And the big takeaway, at least at that point, was nobody was asking us to cure an infectious disease. All they were asking us to do is bend metal that we were already in the business of bending into shapes that would better fit their body size. So we start connecting dots. We ask people what we could do better for them. They tell us, what if we actually start to do it? So we punch a few numbers on the machines in the factories, and soon there's new, varieties of handlebars, foot controls. Now people are demoing that. This is what we're doing. We're asking for your input. You're giving it to us. We love, give us more. We want to know everything about you. And that kind of change created a philosophical change inside the business. So why in God's name are we trying to outsmart our market? Let's ask them what they want. And if we can do it and do it profitably, do it. Why shouldn't we do this? So the then overriding mission of the business was to be the most visible company in the motorcycle world. So we said, we're going to spend our time, money, and effort getting out in front of people, showing letting them see us for who we are. Businesses talk about being passionate and being committed, and that's great. But when people actually see it and smell it and feel it, taste it, well, they remember it and they like it.
I'm curious, Ken, when did the iconic Harley sound become such a big part of the brand and a identifier for what Harley's all about?
Actually, believe it or not, Dean, it was 1909.
Really?
Yep, the year a second cylinder was added to the motor. So now you had, instead of a motor just going bing, 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 adding the second cylinder with, and I won't get too technical here, an offset crank pin created an engine with ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. And that sound became kind of the iconic, what's called in the industry, the potato sound. That you go anywhere in the world, people know that when they hear that sound, they know what it's coming from.
So what came first? I mean, the chicken or the egg? Did people love that sound and therefore you capitalized on it? Or did they love Harley and they identified Harley with that sound?
It was actually a byproduct. The bike just mechanically made that sound. People liked it because it became recognizable. But, and see, here's the thing. I'm sure you've noticed this, that Harley owners like to make their bikes loud.
Yeah.
Myself included. They don't leave the factory that way. They're not allowed to make that much noise. That violates all kinds of federal standards, but people immediately change their exhaust systems to get that roar, to make it, roar at a stop sign or at a red light or going through a tunnel. So if you've ever been behind a bunch of bikes in a tunnel, and it's
yes,
like a Mars rocket taking off, and everybody would think, well, that's that's just what motorcycle people do. They just like to make their bikes loud. But no, there's actually a very easy to understand, very human reason why people like their bikes to be loud. And it's this. It's when you see, Dean, and it's very instructive of what businesses can and should be focusing on. When somebody is sitting on a Harley at a red light or at a stop sign, even if it's like a New York cop on a Harley riders rev their engine at a stop sign. It makes zero sense. You're not moving and you're revving the engine. And the reason that you're doing it, I do it all the time, is that when I do that, I'm talking to you. I say, look at me. Mm-hmm. Eyes this way. Look at me. And when you look, and you're going to, because if you're not looking, we're just going to keep cranking it until you do. When you look at us, for that split second, it could be 1/100th of a second that our eyes meet. A little bit of dopamine is released in our brain. Why? Because I'm experiencing a little bit of delight. Because one of life's most inherently basic human needs has just been met. Somebody looked at me, noticed me, reacted to me, and validated me. I'm not invisible.
Yep.
I'm invisible in my car. I'm invisible at the mall. I'm invisible when I'm shoved into the center seat on a plane somewhere. But when you look at me, it gives me that I'm not invisible, and I like the way this feels. Roll up to the next light, do it again. And I'm going to keep doing it until people stop looking. And again, that's that definition of loyalty. We return to any source of delight till it fails to delight us. So that was what really triggered within our minds at Harley this notion that delight has to be the driving force of the business, because that's what brings people back. Yeah. And we're known for this fierce customer loyalty. And people would always ask, what's the underpinning of that? What makes people so, what are they, the millions of people with Harley tattoos expressing their loyalty to? And they expect you to say, well, they're expressing their loyalty to their motorcycle. And that was the thinking that bankrupted us.
It's
What
more
people,
the loyalty to
the
the
people
experience.
behind the product is who they're
Yeah, the
expressing their
delay.
loyalty to, because we're humans when we humanize everything.
So you mentioned noise, and I
Mm-hmm.
think if I may be correct, that your book mentioned something called the Noise Cubed
Yeah.
trilogy. Could you
Yeah.
explain that and how it
Yeah.
relates to one Harley, but what can people who are listening in on this and thinking like, we need to
Yeah.
do a better job of telling our story. We're selling widgets, we're not selling experiences. Could you tie it together?
Sure. Let me tie it together this way.
Okay.
We were just talking about the sound that Harley riders love to make at red lights or stop signs. That loud roar. And you know that if you're sitting in a meeting somewhere, or you're in a coffee shop somewhere, and a Harley rolls by, you don't even have to see it to know what it is. You
Yeah.
hear that
Yeah.
sound, and your brain, that's a Harley.
Mm-hmm.
Then imagine the sound of a non-Harley bike going by. Your brain goes motorcycle, but it doesn't attach a brand name to it because they all sound exactly the same. All great innovative technological marvels, but they all look and sound and perform the same. So you don't attach a name to that. You do attach a name to that partly because of that distinct noise. So then I say to someone, like, use the same example, but plug your business in. What kind of noise does your business make? When people are talking about your business or thinking about it, what's coming to mind? What comes to mind? What precedes you? What's the reputation of your business? Because if it's just that indistinct sound like the Japanese motorcycle companies have, the products are great, but I don't see any difference between them. It's all the same noise. And what businesses do to their great detriment is describe themselves, promote themselves, market themselves the exact same way their competitors do. We all make the same noise. It's moronic, Dean. If you look at a third grader would say, that's really not the right way to do it. You don't want to be described the same way your competitors are, but businesses just automatically do that. They think they're supposed to. We're all supposed to be like using the same tablet of language. We're all supposed to be talking about our quality and our reliability and our commitment to customer satisfaction and all that kind of nonsense, not realizing that it's not leading them anywhere. So what we essentially started talking about and doing at Harley, say, look, let's capitalize on our noise here. And I said, our noise is what precedes us. So literally on my first day of work, I posted 3 questions out in front of my office. And the questions were really meant to just kind of rally myself and the people around me around what we needed to be focused on. And the 3 questions are, what are people saying about us? What do we want them to say? And what are we doing to get them to say it? In other words, what's our reputation? What would we like it to be? When people are talking about us, what specifically do we want them to say? And then what do we have to do to get them to say it? And that became the what I described as the noise cube trilogy. So if we focus on that above everything, we need to manufacture, we need to be efficient, we need to do all those things that all businesses need to do and do extraordinarily well. But at the end of the day, we need to focus on the bigger picture.
Those are 3 great questions, by the way. I really think those are very insightful. Anybody listening in on this should actually pay attention to that and see if they can have those kinds of conversations with their peers or leaders, because you could get some great information out of that.
Oh, you know what's interesting? If I'm consulting somewhere and I go into the CEO's office or a boardroom with the executive leaders there, then I'll just present a real simple scenario. Say that one of your customers is sitting in the first class section of a plane right now, sitting next to somebody that would be the absolute ideal customer for your business. They are the ideal client, somebody you've always wanted to have under your tent, but just couldn't get a meeting with. This would be like the whale, the dream the dream client, the dream customer. I said, they're sitting next to one of your current customers and they're having a conversation, about what they do or business or problems. And your name's about to come up. Somebody who knows you is about to describe you who's to somebody who doesn't, that would be the biggest, most important, influential customer you'll ever have. What would you want that person that knows you to say? Dean, 100% of the time, the first two words I get from people, I guess, and you guess. Do you see a problem here? I see a huge problem. Yeah. This is what I mean about businesses don't know how to compete. I said, okay, there's 5 people here in the meeting room. There's 6, there's 10, there's 12. I asked you to write it down. I'd have 12 different answers. We don't know. There's the people that are running the business, maybe the people who founded the business, who started it. We don't know what we want people to say about us. So how do our employees know how to describe what we do here? How does that first person answering the phone? How do people doing our marketing? If we don't have consistency on that, and it's not different, and it's not distinct, and it's not memorable, what are we doing? We're commoditizing ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves.
It's such a great point, because I remember you're bringing up a memory, Ken, when I was, I don't know, geez, it was probably 28 years ago. It was one of the very early facilitations we did. It was with a group of executives at Weyerhaeuser.
Yeah.
All up and down the West Coast, all of them having multi-million-dollar budgets, all having big staffs and all the different resources one could possibly have. And we were having this sort of quasi brainstorming, sort of initial strategic planning conversation. And one of the guys stands up and he goes, you know what? I don't know what business we're in.
Yeah.
And it just floored the crap out of me that I thought of anybody on this planet, it would be you all that would know the answer to that question. And that kind of set me down a path, not exactly in the way in which you're talking, but more about strategic planning and creating mission statements and differentiating oneself, not just for your clients, but for yourself. But I just think that you're onto something here, is that we spend so much time doing the business. We don't spend enough time really figuring out how do we create that emotional connection with the people that want to work with us. And so I guess here's my follow-up question to this. Somebody's listening to this, they're driving around, they're going like, all right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Ken. Thanks a lot, Dean. This sounds cool. But what is something that they could do, aside from those 3 wonderful questions that you just provided, that can help them get to their noise, delight version of themselves? How do we know that kernel that makes us so unique, so important, even though we might be in a very saturated industry?
What I tell people is to not focus on making your business unique. You differentiate. You can differentiate through your language. And what I tell people, the second point of the trilogy of what do you want people to say? What do you want people to say about this business? So pull out a pen and a piece of paper and just write down 3 to 5 words or short phrases that you would love to be top of mind with people. And if I'm doing this as an exercise, I can already tell you, Dean, that those 5 words are going to be quality, commitment to customer satisfaction. It's our people.
Honesty, transparency.
That jerk, efficiency stuff. Yeah. And I said, no. And I said, now we're going to redo this exercise, but you can't use as these descriptive words that you want people to forever associate with your language, any words or phrases that any of your competitors are using, which means that you can't use quality. And go, are you saying quality is not important? And I said, I didn't say that. That's a given. That's a given. You're going to hang your hat on that and think that makes you competitive? Somebody will always do it better, faster, cheaper. Now what do you got? Think of 3 to 5 words, and that's not a lot, that are completely distinct, that you can own, that you could use to start conversations with people. And if they ask for example, I'll just like at what we did at Harley, what are 5 words we want people to use to describe us? The word motorcycle doesn't appear. We're a lifestyle business. That was the first. Like, well, what does that mean? I don't care what it means. Nobody knows what that means. But first you remember it, and secondly, it kind of paints a picture in your mind, and the picture involves like people doing something.
Yeah.
Okay. And also they don't expect that.
Right.
What? You guys are a lifestyle business. What does that mean? We sell freedom. Hell does that mean? Nothing. Whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah.
And you can attach all kinds of stuff to that. We sell camaraderie. How do you sell camaraderie? Well, come and look. You never see 10 Hondas going down the road together, but you'll see 10 Harleys all the time.
That's so true.
Or 20,000, or,
That
or,
is so
20
true.
or 30 or 1,000.
Yeah.
Camaraderie. What's the opposite of camaraderie? Individuality. So individuality is a way to express yourself through your bike and through your clothing, through the life that you live, through your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And rebellion. Not rebellion against, the man. It's just rebellion against doing things the way everybody else does. And if we use these words in conversations with people, they remember them. And Dean, I'll tell you this, and I tell everybody till my face turns purple. Everybody is focused on this word of, customer experience. We have to give people an experience, a customer experience. And it's just like the define your business. How do you define customer experience? Everybody will give you a different answer, which means you're not doing it right.
Right.
So all the customer experience is what a customer remembers. Period. They talked to you on the phone, they met you somewhere, they bought your product, they saw you online. What do they remember? And they remember things, if you put it on a plane, maybe 5-7% of things they remember very, very positively. Right? That was great. Oh, they treated me so well, whatever that is. About 20% you remember horribly. They suck. That's every time you call your insurance company with a question on a claim, and it's suddenly a 1 hour call. That they suck. But most businesses live in the middle, where that 80% of transactions are, 80% of interactions are, where the customer got their question answered. The customer got what they came for. You shipped them the product that they ordered. They remember nothing about it because there's nothing to remember about it. I got what I paid for.
Yes.
Hundreds of times a week. We all do. That's someone's experience. So if we can attach things to what we do and how we do it and how we describe what we do, that just imprint in someone's brain.
Yeah.
The Harley guy wasn't talking about motorcycles until I did. He said they're in the lifestyle business. Well, I want to be in that lifestyle, whatever that is. It's just a point of difference.
Right.
Go anywhere on the planet, Dean. Meet somebody riding a Harley and see how long you talk to them before they use the word lifestyle. Why'd you buy the Harley? They'll say, I like the lifestyles. Bing. That's because we use it over and over and over and over and over again to make sure they remember it.
I really like this exercise. if you don't mind, I might have to steal it.
Please do.
It's so good because it just asking so I'm going back to repeat this again. It's you get together with your leaders or your team or whatever, and you come up with 5 words that are not being used by your competitors. And you don't necessarily have to know exactly what it means. It just means
it doesn't have to be like a product specific.
Right. I really think that's fantastic because I do think we get so stuck in terms of trying to sell widgets and I get crazy. I've been telling our marketing company and I've been telling my team if I see another gosh darn word in our material that talks about transformation, I'm going to shoot myself. Right. It's like, and I am the source of that. I get it. We got to find different ways of talking about stuff. I probably get 3 or 4 requests to be on the show a day. Right. So I'm looking at a lot of people pitching why they should be on the show. I'm a transformative this. I believe in this. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I mean, my God, how many times do you hear this? And I don't even know whether they know these things are overused. And so God bless them, right? But I think you come up with a great point is that we change the language, changes the experience.
And if the language has built-in human attributes, it's all to the better. What does the freedom mean? Well, that's not a product-y term, and that doesn't have to do with materials and work. you don't forget it immediately. And that's kind of the point. You attach to it the kind of meaning that you want to attach to it. But here's something else. And I always say this to people that are working in a corporate environment is everybody feels that they're due for a raise or a promotion. And if somebody's going to get that raise or that promotion, it should be me.
Right.
And why should it be? Because I work really hard. I'm the first one here. The stuff that, you typically hear when someone talks about their performance, or, I'm a damn good accountant. So how many other, people work here in the accounting department? There'll be 20 people. So would you say that all the rest of them are lousy accountants? Of course not. You just said that you're a good accountant. Yeah. And because of that you're aligned for promotion. Right. And I said, if the people above you are sitting in a boardroom somewhere talking about who gets promoted, how are they going to, what language would they use when they describe you? Well,
Right.
You're a good accountant. And they say, that's what you're paid to do.
I know.
You better be a good accountant. And I said,
Exactly.
You're introduced at a party somewhere. Is that how you'd want to be? This is Fred. He's an accountant. You say, no.
It is a good one too.
You describe me for, like, I'm awesome. I'm fun. I'm really cool. I'm a great basketball player. Whatever those human attributes are that someone's going to remember me by, that's what I want to be known for. And I always tell people, it's like, sit down, pull out the pen and a piece of paper in the morning while you're drinking coffee and just start thinking, all right, the boss is talking about me to the CEO, or they're talking about me in the boardroom. How would I want them to describe me? And then come up with this language that nobody else would use to describe themselves in the, accounting department or the payables or engineering or whatever that might be. And then begin peppering that, using that language in your conversation. Put it at the bottom of your emails. Make it part of your email signature. Put it on your LinkedIn page, whatever that, if somebody remembers just one of those words when they're describing, bing, you immediately took a big step above everybody else who's only known for what they do.
That's so great. So you're saying, though, these 5 words are human-centered, human experience-centered versus, like, for example, quality, like, for example, productivity, which, again, are overused nonetheless. But you're talking about something that it has to do with the human condition.
Yeah. And stuff that's going to be, remember it, right?
Like adventure, like freedom.
It can be like hilarious. He's hilarious.
That's a human condition. That's a human descriptor.
And what people say is they'll typically lapse into words like, great or awesome. I say, that's fine. A great guy. But you can go a little bit deeper. I think you get a little bit more creative on that. Have some, like, you're the coolest. Whatever, you're the funniest. Things like that. The most humble, an awesome parent, volunteers in a 10 or volunteers for everything. Whatever these things are, just use it and use it over and over and over again.
I love that, because that's like also, I think that you're bringing into another thing that I don't think a lot of us do, is that repetition. It's that we can't, if we keep changing the narrative, we're going to remember nothing. Mm-hmm. But if we continue to refocus and remind ourselves and remind everybody else that these are the 5 words, and I'm not going to say, hey, I'm calling out today, these are the 5 words, don't forget them. But you pepper and salt and pepper them into your conversation. Exactly. But it's the same 5 words.
If you just came up with 3, I
love it.
Great. And like I said, you can change, you can add to it, but it's just the fact that, first of all, that you're going through this exercise, you're kind of challenging yourself to come up with this. But secondly, it's that shining that spotlight on the fact, like, look, man, you're competing here.
Yes.
You're competing against everybody else that works here for resources, a raise, the glory that comes with the promotion, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And people got to know you for who you are. And that's what you need to focus on. Think of the face on the lower right corner on virtual calls when there's 10 people on the call, and there's always those people who say nothing.
Right.
Do nothing.
Right.
Just sit and stare.
Or don't even have their cameras on.
Oh, yeah. That's they're in a whole league
of their own.
Other
category. Yeah.
And I always tell, like,
literally not showing up.
you're competing every day, and right now you're losing.
Right on.
Because you look dead, you look disinterested. You could be writing down formula that's going to save the business, but nobody knows that because you're not participating, you're not active, you look bored, you don't look, I see no passion or enthusiasm and anything. I see somebody who is immediately replaceable. And you're always competing. It's really, really good. As a person working within a business, you're either focused on competing or somebody else is going to pass you by.
That's a really good point. So Ken, this is really, I am just very pleased by how this has gone. I've got some great ideas and I hope others who are listening do as well. Tell us about how to follow what you're about, the book, LinkedIn, your website, anything that's coming up for you, big speech, you know, here's your pitch, man.
Ooh, okay, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest place.
There's only how many hundreds of Ken Schmidts out there are there?
But I will tell you, if you'll see the word, or just put Ken Schmidt Harley or Ken Schmidt motorcycle or noise. You can find my book, Make Some Noise, The Unconventional Road to Dominance. Sold any place you get books, or you listen to my podcast, Tailgating with Geniuses, which is tons of fun. Or you can just email me a question or a comment at ken@kenspeaks.com. I've never received a question from anybody that I didn't answer.
Wow. That's very good. That's excellent. Well, Ken, it's been a great pleasure to meet you and to hear your story. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dee. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Leadervation with Dean Newland. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadervation.